Hello and welcome to the Where's My Thing podcast, where we help you find your thing,
as well as help us find our thing,
in this exciting world. There's a bit of a delay going on here. As you can see, we're going remote at the moment, but today we're going to be talking about investing in yourself and why it's important. I hope you enjoy. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about investing in yourself, and we're going to be visiting a few subcategories within that, mainly things like books, courses, hardware and software, and various other things as well. And firstly, before we get stuck into it, my name's Matt. Hello. I run a YouTube channel based around woodworking, and with me...
you have Rob Harvey, who is the video editor for Matt, and I also sort of create my own music books on the side.
And yeah, so we normally film this podcast in the workshop, but we're not there today. I've done my back in, I can't move, so I'm sat here in this nice supportive chair, and we're doing it like this instead. Nothing will stop us, Rob, will it?
No, not a single thing, not even this delay that we're currently having to deal with.
It's absolutely terrible. So, investing in yourself is today's topic, but before we get stuck into that, after we've done our introductions, we're going to do a quick 60-second update on what we've actually achieved this week. This is so you guys can stay in the loop of what's happening behind the scenes and also give us a bit of accountability to get stuff done every single week, which is hard at the best of times. So,
yeah, last week was awful for me, and I had to go first, so this time it's you.
Good. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Fair enough.
You have in 3, 2, 1, you've got 60 seconds starting now.
Oh no, where was the... Okay, right, it's fine. I have the notes prepared. So, this week, Rob, I've sort of alluded to it already, but I've kind of gone down this rabbit hole of watching a lot of Dragon's Den in the evenings. So, basically getting to bed at about 11 o'clock, and then by about 3 o'clock, I'm sort of finished. I've done about 4-hour stints of Dragon's Den. Got really invested in it, but after Christmas, I did a 5-hour stint, woke up in the morning, and I couldn't move my back. Like, I've done my back in watching Dragon's Den. So apart from that means I'm not in the workshop this week, which is a bit of a shame. I've realised I forgot to press the timer, so I'm just going to start it now. And yeah,
I've got my timer.
Oh, have you? Great, okay. And apart from that, well, sort of in addition to that, I suppose, Dragon's Den, it's inspired me to get a grip of my numbers. So I've downloaded some accounting software to get hold of, work out the proper profits and margins and all that. What time is it?
You got 7 seconds.
Cool. And then I've been doing thumbnails. I've been doing a few videos for planned videos and all these other things. I didn't really do that very well, Biscuits.
Done.
I only hit 2 points.
I forgot that you were meant to be recording your own. And obviously then you remembered and you wasted time. I tell you what though, you said Biscuits on the 0 second mark. I was very impressed.
There we go. That's not too bad. Yeah, I did loads of things, but instead I just talk about how I'm crippled.
You did, and it's amazing how much your pain brings me happiness. It's amazing. But yeah, I'm glad that's happened because I had such a horrific attempt at saying it last week, and I feel like the fact that you had so much to talk about and yet didn't, it makes it all that much better.
I did. Oh.
Anyways, I guess it's my turn now.
Yeah, some of the things I can talk about later on anyway, so it's fine.
It's fine.
Cool, right, well, I'm going to start it this time.
Okay.
So, 3, 2, go.
Okay, so on Wednesday, we recorded the podcast, we organised the mezzanine floor, created the podcast topics, further edited the gaming video, I got a new piano stool, remembered I did a video for Backwards Creek, and ended subscriptions to most services to save on my finances. Sunday, I released 17 videos on the online school, created and edited a new thumbnail for the Dovetail box, we uploaded 2 videos for perfect ordering, finished reading Atomic Habits and started reading The Obstacle is the Way. Monday, released the rest of the student series, created great student series thumbnails, edited and uploaded episode 3 of the podcast, began uploading the podcast to YouTube, discovered the Dovetail stream, live stream was doing well, and then Tuesday released 10 videos for the Cabinet Project, edited 60% of the Bingo Boys video, collected and tested a wide-angle lens for live streaming, and completed 75% of a new podcast website. How long have I got?
18 seconds.
Oh my god! Okay, and today I released the rest of the student series, so that's all up there, just waiting on Matt to give me the last episode of the finishing stuff. He actually needs to improve all of the thumbnails as well, because mine look so darned good, and I have also pretty much finished the podcast website as well. Cookies.
What? What was that sign off?
That was a genuine accident. I knew it was like something circular and dessert-like, and I just said the wrong one.
Not cake?
No, I like cookies quite a lot. I'd take cookies over cake.
I'll tell you, so last week I said that you sounded somewhat like a politician by avoiding the actual question itself and sort of alluding around it.
Yeah.
This time what I found that you've done is you've taken a sort of leaf from your student background where you have an essay of a certain word count to hit and you've just spaced it all out.
Well, to be honest, I didn't anticipate reading it exactly word for word, everything that I had there, which I did. And Matt held this up, and you'll see it on the YouTube vid as it comes out. He just held up a piece of paper saying script, as if I'd scripted the whole thing, which essentially I did. But, okay, so what I've been doing, which is I think has been really good and might help other people, is at the end of each day, I now write a short list of bullet points of what I've actually got done. And it really makes a difference to sort of your mental health to make you realise that actually you've done a lot today. Because I could say, well, I just worked on a website today. I didn't do that much. But in reality, I did 60% of a website starting from scratch. And suddenly it all adds up. And so, yeah, I realised I suddenly had a lot of bullet points and I was panicking that I wasn't going to get through it in time. But Jesus, I had 18 seconds left. That's
really good. I'll tell you what, actually, I can sort of agree with that because although I didn't get through any of my points, I've sort of been doing the same thing. Like, I've been doing lots of little jobs like the thumbnails and that was it, videos for play. I've been doing like sort of videos talking you through how to read the plans for the free online school projects because I get a lot of emails about it.
Oh, okay.
Sort of, you know, new to woodworking, but they don't know how to read plans and they need someone to talk them through that. So I've been doing that. Mm-hmm. And I sort of, I find that my head works best doing that all in the morning. But then in the afternoon, when I'm sort of, I don't know, I'm sort of bogged down, I'm not as fast anymore, I start working away at, like, slaving away at things that aren't necessarily fun. And that's where I've been learning how to do the accounting software that I've got.
Oh, really?
And I've been slaving away at it for, like, hours each day. And so I get to the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I still haven't worked it out. And I think, I've done nothing today. And then you sort of, I look at my to-do list, it's like, oh, wait, no, I ticked off all that this morning. I forgot I even did that. Yeah. So, yeah, it is a good idea. That's sort of a long-winded way of agreeing with you, but
no,
yeah.
it's no, it all makes sense, and the fact that I could sort of compile it today, I mean that was only 4 out of 7 days because we had Christmas, and it's just a really good way of reminding yourself how much you can actually get done.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So. And I've been waking up at 10 o'clock each day, so
yeah, so you've done pretty well then.
I have, yeah. I mean, granted, I've been stopping at about 10 o'clock at night as well. And then, you know, watching Dragon's Den until 3.
You're an embarrassment.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. We're going to be talking today about investing in yourself. And this can be anything from books to online courses. I mean, in-person courses used to exist as well. I forget about that. And hardware and software. So let's sort of dive into why we think this is going to be sort of quite an important topic for people to get their heads around.
Yeah, and just to preempt it, again, a lot of this podcast is based around business, but this particular episode, investing in yourself, is around business, but also personal stuff as well. You know, sort of mindset towards everyday life, I suppose. At least I've got a few books and stuff to talk about within that sort of area. But yeah, we're not limited to just money making and all that sort of thing as per usual. It is just generally about, you know, gathering inspiration. Yeah, self-improvement, that's the one.
There we go.
Personal growth, I guess, is the other word. So, yeah, we've got a few things to touch on that. Firstly, I guess what was the ticking point for you? I love presenting this because I can throw it to you straight away.
Right.
What was the sort of point where you ticked over and thought, this is actually quite important to start thinking about this kind of stuff?
Okay. So, I think for me, it's probably only recently in the last year or two, and obviously hit a massive stride during lockdown. But prior to that, I mean, school and university wasn't that long ago. And so you had this structure, you had this regime basically where you did what you were told and you learnt because of it. And then as soon as we were out of it, I don't know about you, but I spent all my free time just doing things I wanted to do, like playing games.
Yeah.
Not really making the most of my time. And then so like a couple of years back when I wanted to get into the video production world, I started looking online at different YouTube videos and sort of learning from that as an online resource. And then during lockdown, of course, that went into overdrive because suddenly you realise that no business is safe in the real world, essentially. Mm-hmm. You can't just rely on the fact that the retail can exist. You can't rely on the fact that there might be a job just down the street if you're struggling for money. And so I thought, now's the time to actually put in a bit of work, especially with the spare time I had from not travelling to the students that I'd normally teach.
Yeah, of course. That's funny. I thought it was a little bit early for you. I didn't realise it was mainly in the past sort of year. I mean, I think that obviously ramped up it for a lot of people, but I thought you were always pretty switched on, like, before that.
I mean... Okay, I think there's you can look at it actively and you can look at it passively. I think actively it's only been in the last year and a half, but sort of the passive stuff comes from music production, having to learn my way around the software and the hardware just by Googling and researching. So that has to happen just because otherwise I won't know what's going on. But it wasn't like I was thinking purposefully, right, I'm going to take out a course on music production and learn about this stuff. No, it was like, oh, I'm stuck on this, let me fix this. So it's not quite the same. Right,
that makes sense. Yeah, I think this year it's I don't know, for me at least, my turning point was when I ended, well, my first relationship ended, and I sort of didn't really feel like I had a lot to live for, kind of thing, for lack of a better word. I was just sort of like, future comes crashing down, and I was just sort of like, I don't know, I was fully invested in that. And so that happened, and then just basically everything was just timed very well. I sort of went travelling. I found myself... No, that didn't happen. I'm not one of those people. I didn't come back wearing those floral trousers. No, I came back just wearing black. But no, I did that afterwards, and then I think our friend Henry shared something on Facebook, which was a video by Gary Vaynerchuk, which was what to do after college. Mm-hmm. I think it was like a 3 or 4 minute video. And for those of you that don't know Gary Vaynerchuk, he's basically... he teaches a lot of things. Not necessarily about the sort of techie and like the ins and outs of like business. It's mainly the mindset around it. And if I was to put one word for it, it's Stoicism. It's basically just getting on with it, and, you know, if it's not working, do something else. Don't bother complaining about it or anything. Just try that, and just get on with it. Don't overthink things and just do it. So I started getting a lot from that, and then I started reading a bunch of other books and stuff that sort of around this on the back end of that. And basically it was timed very well, where it's kind of just like I was at this sort of point where it's like, well, it's only up from here, I guess. Yeah. And just all these other things just really well timed jumped in with it. And yeah, I mean, that was my turning point for it, I think. It's just kind of, yeah, you're at the lowest of lows, and it's sort of like, well, let's make it better then.
Yeah, and it makes absolute sense. And I think, to be quite honest, there was a significant part of jealousy on my part from seeing you start the YouTube videos and actually have so much purpose. Because at the time, all I was playing was GTA, Minecraft, and Rocket League. That was my life. Sorry, and don't forget World of Warcraft. So that was uni. I studied so hard. Not. But it was... Arguably, I could have been investing far more in myself at the time, and seeing Matt release those videos, I thought, right, yeah, I should get on the piano stuff. And I never really did that properly. That being said, we only saw my old videos the other week. And it's probably a good thing I didn't, because they were horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
So are my first videos, though. I didn't even want to narrate over the first ones.
Oh, yes. Anyways. It's no good dwelling on the past. It is what it is. Thankfully, we've improved. So yeah.
Stoicism.
Exactly. Don't dwell on it. So that's sort of our backgrounds to it all. Like, we haven't been doing it all that long, really. No. But I think it's a mentality that only improves over time, and the more books you read, the more you study, the more you realise, actually, this is a really enjoyable process. So now for me, I try and read at least like 30 to 50 pages of a book every night before I go to bed.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've had a bit of a mindset switch with it recently. Or not a mindset switch, I've just sort of had a realisation where it's kind of like previously, like you said, we both would just slave away at games and stuff like that, and always try and like level up and stuff like that. And basically, it sounds really pretentious, but it's kind of like, well, life's kind of a game in a way. Like
that's it. Gamify everything.
You could either just stay at the same level and just, enjoy killing low-level characters and things like that, or you can.
Sorry, what are you alluding to?
I don't know, just things. But like, you can level up using what's available to you. You can, in doing so, you'll sort of unlock more things. There are obviously rules to play by, laws, and you can choose to break them using cheat codes. But then that's going to come back bite you in the arse later. Like,
this is quite the analogy.
I don't know. There's a lot of parallels to it. It's just, I don't know. I find it quite interesting. So I'm always trying to make those parallels now. It's like the law one was only a recent one. It's like, well, how does law? Oh wait, yeah. Like, there's only so much a controller can do in a game.
So let's jump onto the books, shall we? Because was it Wim on the Facebook fan club that we've got?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, who mentioned that we should do this, and we decided we should probably just jump on it, because we love reading books in the moment and sort of discovering new things and sharing them. So let's try and do that now. So I've just finished a really good book, fantastic book. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Looks rather lovely. It's all about trying to make habits have rewards and make you redo them, which essentially makes a habit sort of exist for even longer. But what I've taken away from it most is how to get rid of bad habits and how to make sure that they're not part of your life. And for us, I think this goes for both of us, the social media stuff is not only a great thing, but also a curse. It's something that if a video starts rendering, I'm immediately on Twitter. I'm immediately on Instagram. And there's 1,000,001 things I could be doing. I've got multiple devices I could be working on. But I just decide that because it's rendering, it's now my time to go on social media. So that book, at the moment, has been quite a surprise to how it's helped me. Because I thought it was going to be about good habits. But really, for me, it's been about getting rid of the bad.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that with you as well. You've mentioned the word habit quite a lot in the past few weeks, particularly around this podcast. It's sort of like, well, we could do it this day, we could do it this way, and you're like, it doesn't really matter when we do it, as long as we do it.
Yes.
And I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, that's very true. Like, we could have just skipped this week and saying, like, I don't know, we can't do it because we can't be in the workshop. But like, actually, yeah, it's such a simple thing, isn't it? But I've definitely noticed it.
Yeah. And it just makes you want to do things more, and it keeps you accountable for when you don't do them. And so the very idea of just skipping a week already on the podcast, to me, is like, you failed. Mm-hmm. That's just a bad thing. We said we were going to do it weekly. Let's do it weekly. Let's stick by our word.
Yeah, that's it. If you can make an excuse once, you can make it twice, can't you?
Yeah. So what have you been reading recently?
Okay. So recently, or at the moment, I'm reading a very different book. So I got served this ad or something on Facebook. I'm not entirely sure where I saw it, but basically it just had this very simple table, and it basically said books you should read by the time you're 18, books you should read by the time you're 25, books you should read by the time you're maybe 30 or something like that. I can't remember, but it basically had these tiers, just 3 tiers. And I just thought, well, this is quite well done. I recognised some of the ones in that first column that I've already read, and I really liked them. We'll touch on those in a bit. And there was these ones in this second column, and I was 24 at the time. I'm now 25. And I just thought, hey, well, it's pretty accurate there. These ones must be pretty good. So I've taken one from that, and I've started with one of them, which is How to Improve Your Memory, which I thought was quite interesting. Yeah, so it's from a guy who memorised, I might be completely off on this, and there's a few little weird things within it on how he did it, but he memorised 10,000 digits of pi. Like he's I think he's got the title Grandmaster something.
Pi champion.
Yeah, something like that. So he's got this mental memory. The book's like really thin as well. There's not a lot in it. I think the thing is, I didn't quite get to the end of it because I was reading 2 at the same time, and this second one's taken over. But that's quite an interesting one, just from the start. The second one I'm reading it's called The Power of Now.
Okay.
Which, on a surface, hear me out, It's about spiritual enlightenment.
Okay, I will hear you out.
So I'm not one for this wishy-washy stuff. I don't really. But there is a really nice principle in it where it's sort of like a lot of the time you're just walking around and you don't realise it, but you've got a voice in your head and you're thinking about things in the future, you're thinking about things in the past, and you're just thinking about all these things that you need to do and not actually just sort of looking around at the world. Mm-hmm. It's so simple. Yeah. And I think you get it every now and then, or at least I've had it every now and then, where it's just kind of like you're in a really good mood for some reason and you look around and it's just kind of like, this is like pretty chill, I'm pretty comfortable, and I've never really been able to pinpoint why exactly that is. And it's where you have little moments of that where it's just you're sort of in the present, you've got no noise going on at all. And so I did it the other day. I was just I felt like I was a bit trapped in the house. I just needed to get out a bit, so I just basically walked to the park, put some music in my ears. Ludovico Einaudi, is that his name?
Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
I used to listen to him quite a lot in the degree, and I memorised that as like a really good and like chilled out time in my life, and so it sort of brings me back to that a bit. And I just sort of walked around the park. I went there, I drew a tree.
Wow.
I don't know, it was really nice just sort of going there with no purpose and like not hoping to get anything out. The drawing's crap. It's absolutely awful. But
that's not the point.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it was nice to just go there and just look at something like as it is without looking at it and like having this thing in your background just going, when I get back I need to do this. What are my aims in life? What am I wanting to do? It's crazy like how when you're out of that you sort of how much clearer you feel. I think it's the same thing as meditation, essentially.
Yeah.
You hear people preach about meditation all the time, and that's basically just bringing you back to the present. It's like that, but I guess doing it, being in a permanent state of that, in a way.
And well, I think in the case of like the drawing and doing something that distracts you from everything else, it had no purpose other than to draw. It wasn't like you were trying to gain revenue from it. It wasn't like it was for a client. It was just for you, and that meant that it had no strings attached. Yeah.
It's nice. Just sort of, I go into moments there every now and then. You can kind of separate your mind a bit, where it's like, I'm thinking of things, but I know I'm thinking of things, and if you just keep doing that, and you're sort of like, you're aware that your mind's going crazy, then eventually you can start pulling it out a lot easier.
I believe that's the definition of meditating. I've heard that quite a lot. Yeah, it's like the first time you try meditating, you should like you'll just think your mind's whizzing around, you just can't stop it. But just recognise that you're thinking too much and pull yourself back. And it's just practice that makes you do that for longer.
It's a really interesting thing. It's like, I don't know, I think I'm trying to think of times where I sort of felt like I've hit that sort of moment of presentness, I suppose, but not knowing what it is. And I always put it down to the fact that I learned photography. I started putting more into it. Like, I remember driving through Wantage at golden hour, and so it's just fields, like hills everywhere. Really nice time of year. I think it was spring or something like that, so everything was blooming, and it was just golden hour, beautiful scenery. And I was like, this is bloody lovely. I probably wouldn't have noticed this if I didn't learn photography, but actually it was probably, maybe there was an element of that, but it was also like, just looking at things and appreciating it rather than driving through there thinking about the delivery I had to do for Axminster.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I was going to say the same thing when you started on this whole sort of wellness thing and being there in the present, but we've said it before, that we recognise, like, it's all well and good. Somebody can say, oh yeah, you like the look of a sunset, but no, it's like you can just spot different things when you're sort of thinking about the photo. And then other people might say, well, that's taking it away from you, but no, you just wouldn't recognise it if you hadn't done a bit of photography. And I've noticed that, and I'm just incredibly lucky for this, my bedroom just literally looks out across a field. So, and the sun rises on the horizon, essentially, across that field. And the last few mornings, it has been stunning. And like I'm in the shower room just seeing this glow through the window, and I'm like, crap, I've got to get out. I need to see actually what this looks like and appreciate it. It's been good.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And like, I don't even need to do it for like sunsets or really nice things at the moment. I can read the book in bed, and I just kind of put the book down. I look around. It's like, it's a bedroom. Like you look at the ceiling, and it's just sort of like, that's there. Yeah, it's really weird. I can't explain it, but it's like you I don't know. It's a good book, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, apart from all the wishy-washy things about whatever, there's a lot in it, and there's a lot of big words, and there's a lot of very complex sentences that I don't really understand. But I think as a general concept, it's really good. So that's called The Power of Now. It's by I think his name's I can't pronounce it. Eckhart Tolle. It's a very odd name.
Well, in any case, we'll have links to all of the books that we talk about today in the podcast description that you can find on Spotify or Apple, and it'll hopefully be on the website very shortly too.
Let's talk about, I guess, the ones that we covered throughout lockdown, because I know we had obviously quite a few that we touched on or we read at the same time, I suppose.
Yes.
So I think one that sort of sticks to mind initially is building a story brand. I assume that's the one you're thinking of as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the top. So we're talking a little bit more business now. This might be a little bit more interesting to people. And so building a story brand is by a guy called Donald Miller. Looks like this for you watching on YouTube. And it's a fascinating book because it really applies to every single business that possibly existed, or will exist in the future. Mm-hmm. It's a really, really good read, and I think we both probably took the most out of that book than any other book that we read during lockdown.
I think the reason it applies to so many different businesses is just because it's focused so much on human psychology and why we buy into things. And just a simple formula of identifying that psychology that needs to be addressed and then building a sort of story around that, I suppose, isn't it? And like addressing that. It's interesting because when there's a few sales tactics and stuff, isn't there? Like language used. And I notice it and stuff with ads now where I get served something. I'm like, cool, that's there. They're appealing to this part of my psychology, like, wanting to appear wealthy or something like that, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's interesting how you can sort of pick apart ads and advertisements after reading that. Yeah,
it's like the handbook for anyone who wants to write good copy for their marketing material. And it's also applied to the videos that we've created. So, particularly you when you started the Garden Workshop series.
The Garden Workshop series, yeah. So previously, I don't know, we've obviously changed the format of the videos since the Garden Workshop series, but that series was pretty much immediately after reading that book. And we thought, instead of just making it, an arbitrary decision to start working in the garden, let's actually build a story and a reason behind it. And so there was, I'm not saying that we completely fabricated a story to film this series. What we did, like the story was already there. We just, in the past, wouldn't have said it. We wouldn't have highlighted it. Yeah. So, for example, the story was I was losing motivation in the workshop. I didn't feel too challenged, and I sort of felt the need to, give that a go while also inspiring people to those with less kit to be able to do stuff in their garden. And so those were all things that were there. But previously, without reading that book, I would have just said, skip all that. Today, guys, I'm working in the garden because I can't get to my workshop.
Yeah, and that would have been the whole thing, yeah.
That would have been it. And like people would have got stuff from that, but there wouldn't have been as much... people wouldn't have bought into it as much, I don't think. And it wouldn't have appealed to as much of a wider audience, I don't think, either. It just gave a bit more depth and meaning to it, especially from my point of view, because I think it gave me a bit of accountability as well.
Well, when I watched that video, sort of knowing that we had been reading these books and sort of had a good think about how it was going to be laid out, having watched that video, I was stunned at how compelling it was from that change, from that whole concept of bringing in a story it was suddenly really good and really interesting. The amount of camera cuts that you had to iterate points, just the flow of the whole thing had changed from the previous content made. I admit I didn't watch the rest of the Garden series, but I'm a busy guy.
The thing, that's what we found quite difficult. So it was very easy for that. We're probably going off on a bit of a tangent here, but that story was highlighted in the first video, and then the subsequent 7 or 8 videos were just off the back of that. But so what's been the problem with our videos in the past is that as the series goes on, we start very strong, but then start tapering off towards the end.
The picnic bench.
And as that, picnic bench, well, and the garden workshop, to be honest, like it was pretty good, but definitely things started tapering off towards the end, and that story became a little bit more vague, which is why in the current videos we're still highlighting that story, but trying to do it a little bit more condensed so we can focus all our time on it.
And keep people watching so that they get the most out of the video as well, because there's no point trying to teach somebody something if within 3 minutes they've already turned off. You've got to keep people watching to actually teach the lesson in the first place, like the end of Matt's plane video. That was Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. The other one we've got, I don't know if you've been thinking about it, but Superfans.
Yeah, I've actually got that written here. That's a good one.
Superfans by Pat Flynn. So we mentioned Pat Flynn in the past. He created the Smart Passive Income podcast, which is a fantastic resource for anyone wanting to get into business and literally learn everything from every single possible entrepreneur that could have ever existed in the first place. He's very good at getting the guests in, and he's a great interviewer. But this book, Superfans, is really about building a community. So it's not just about having an audience. It's not just about getting eyes on your product. It's more about making those people want to come back for more. And building this community, building these super fans, hence the name, so that they're invested in you as much as you're invested in them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we did pretty well at introducing some of those things, but actually I think we've been somewhat lucky this year with the fan club, with that just naturally, because I don't think we intended for, we always wanted a community when we started the Daily Me videos in August. That was the basic premise behind it. But I don't know if we used that book as inspiration behind that. I think we just wanted to use that as like experiment with daily videos.
It was always a test. We'd always planned to do it like months in advance. We'd said we were going to do a few weeks in the summer. But I think even it might have been even previously, like in the winter before COVID was even a thing. We'd said let's try and make in the summer holidays that we'd test out doing videos daily for fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then sort of it all just snowballed suddenly.
Yeah, I think what's quite interesting about that book is that I don't think it necessarily gave me tactics to help grow an audience or superfans or whatever. I think what it did more for me was just give me ideas of how to better serve an audience. Like there was one where it was one that sticks to mind is so simple. It's like if you're creating videos, let the audience decide the thumbnails. On Twitter sometimes I would share 2 thumbnails and say, hey, which ones do you think's best? And let them decide. I've since got software to do that automatically for me, I will say. But it's just, I wouldn't have thought of doing that before. And actually, like, I'm not doing it from a tactic point of view. It's quite fun, I think, in a way.
Yeah. And it works both ways. It's not only getting them involved, but it's actually potentially helping the reach of the channel, helping the reach of the business, giving the people who already follow you the option to help out. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so I like the book for that. It was more of a inspiration sort of thing rather than a what's the word for it? Results driven, I think. Yeah, I think it put a lot of things into perspective. Absolutely, yeah, and sort of highlighted the importance of community and having these sort of fans around. Yeah, because it's very good. It's very good. So the other one that you read, that sort of I read your notes on and then didn't quite get through the book myself, was Primal Branding. Yeah, Primal Branding. I think it was quite good. It had a lot of good reviews. I think it's. I don't know if it's as up to date as the current ones, but I think, again, the name sort of says it all, Primal Branding. It kind of reflects a lot of the things said in Story Brand, where it's about speaking to people's instincts and
primal sort of things, primal instincts. I thought that was quite interesting. It was harder to, I would say it was harder to apply to my business or any other business for that matter, because it was very broad terms used in it. And I don't think, it was more of a investigation of a book rather than teaching. So it investigates why these brands are successful. Because they've got certain things like icons and they've got things like rituals and things like that.
I remember now. It was all just like case studies.
That was it. Case study. That's the word I'm looking for. It was really interesting because, again, you could look at things and it's like, whether they're doing it intentionally or not, that's what that is. That's what that is. And we identified a few in my business as well that, again, fully unintentional, but they work. And if it just happens to be that if you get all of these things in one, you've got a really, really strong brand going. And so there were a few holes in ours that I've tried to patch. It's hard to do again because it's difficult to take action from a book where it's hitting such broad terms. But I thought it was quite interesting.
I mean, in terms of reading, if anyone wants to get Primal Branding and building a story brand, read Primal Branding first. Because that gives you the baseline, and then story branding is more applicable to your business. Yeah,
you can take more action, I think, from story brand.
Yes, I did it in the reverse order and got a little bit sort of put off by primal branding purely because I'd already understood as much as I needed to know.
Yeah,
but I think primal branding gives you the baseline.
Absolutely. Okay, I've got a couple other books here. How many have you got?
I can whiz through a few of them. So I've got like 4 or 5.
So I've got one. I mentioned, again, off the sort of topic of business, I suppose. I mentioned Stoicism earlier, which I'm sort of a big fan of. Basically, Stoicism is like just not complaining and getting on with things. I really like it as a concept, and it's not dwelling on things. And basically, I've got a book called Principles by Ray Dalio. It's a big book. It's about that thick, a couple inches. Ray Dalio is basically, I think he's the most wealthy, or he runs the biggest hedge fund in the world. So he's a really wealthy guy, but he's basically a machine. It's very hard to explain how he's put all these processes in, but basically you can just sort of read the world as a machine where it's like a cause and effect kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's how he's been able to be so successful. And the reason for that is because he doesn't let his own feelings, or not necessarily feelings, I suppose, but his own mental bias influence decisions. And he does that by mechanizing these decisions, I suppose, where he's actually built software to help him make decisions with employees and stuff like that. And it's a really, really interesting thing. But the whole book is based around those sort of principles. And I'd say just things he follows to be successful in, it's actually mainly a personal life rather than professional. But I thought it was really good, just kind of, just looking at things purely from a this is what it is point of view, rather than I wish it was this way.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, really interesting. I dip in and out of it because it is a big book and it's chaptered quite well. I don't think you need to do it consistently, but I really like that as a book. It's quite good. And then the other one I'll quickly touch on here is the negotiation book that I read recently.
I need to read that.
That's a bloody good book, that. So I've been on YouTube in the past. I haven't seen them so much now, but the masterclass ad keeps popping up. And there's a tutor on there called Chris Voss, who was a CIA negotiator for, terrorist situations and hostage situations and all that sort of thing. And he did this whole career as a negotiator and now works in sort of business training, I suppose, in negotiation. And he's got a very small book, again, probably about a centimetre thick, I reckon. But basically just sort of talks about the concept behind it, the psychology behind it, and also gives you actionable steps in it. And it's quite interesting, to the point where me and you had a laugh where I used some of them in some emails to get my own way.
The impact that these emails suddenly had, it hit me like a train. They weren't aimed at me in any way. I just got walloped by the guilt and the emotions that Matt managed to pack into this damn email pretty much in the last sentence because of this negotiation stuff. And
it's like, I want to say it's not, it probably sounds like really dark what I'm saying here, like negotiating to get your own way, but it wasn't. It was just a certain choice of words that basically just backs them into the corner that you want them to be in.
Yeah, it puts it all into perspective, into the perspective that you see, not the one that they're seeing.
Yeah, exactly. And my perspective, I won't say what it was, but I think it'll be a perspective, or I know that it'll be a perspective that all viewers would agree with. It was the person on the other side that was a little bit, a bit wrong on things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it was for good reason, but it's a very, very interesting book. And so that book is called Never Split the Difference. Really cool book.
Nice. So I guess I've got a ton here. I've just got a lot to my side. So if I sound slightly weird, it's because I'm facing the other way. And if Matt has sounded slightly weird at any point, it's because he keeps facing away from his mic.
Sorry.
That's fine. That's what we get for doing it remotely. But anyway, I've got the subtle art of not giving a f***. You would have heard the subtle art of not giving a quack. This is by Mark Manson, and
you're gonna have to blur the cover now.
No, it's all right. It's already asterisked.
Oh yeah,
just about. But yeah, so this book, I'll really briefly touch on everything here. Is essentially what it says on the tin, and it's just about perceiving things as what they are. And not dwelling on things too much. I've just realised that Stoicism comes into a huge amount of what I've been reading recently. But he's very blunt about things, and yeah, it's just quite a good book if you want to get into that mindset of not panicking, not worrying about what others think. Like, I think when people start a business or create a product, they're often panicking about what are my friends and family going to think about this particular thing. It's irrelevant about the clients. It's about what your personal friends are thinking, and to just go, doesn't matter what they think. And at the end of the day, this is for me, then you've got a better way of thinking to make sure the business probably succeeds a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's that one. I've got a book that was lent to me in the past by one of my students called Bounce by Matthew Syed. Really, really good book. It's all about sportsmen throughout history, and it's sort of highlighting the fact that talent, or natural talent doesn't really exist. Just the fact that all of these external factors have come together to help somebody in the past, and it just happens to mean that they've got really good. Like Tiger Woods, for example, he was given like a golf club at the age of like 4 or 5, and it's no wonder he's good now. He's been playing that long. You've got grandmasters in chess. Like I think there were 3 sisters who exist, and it was all because of a father's experiment. They were homeschooled, and from as young as they could get, they were playing chess, and they absolutely love it because they started from a young age. So it's not like they were naturally talented. It was more like hard work pays off. And that's a really sort of good thing to take away in general. Oh, I've got so many. I'll whiz through them. The Rule Breaker's Guide to Social Media by Damien Keys.
Cool.
Pretty good one, especially if you want something that's going to give you like an instruction guide. I think it's got 30 days of literally telling you what to do in order to build up more of a brand, more of an image, and it's just pretty good for understanding a bit more about social media and how to break it a little bit. A little bit outdated now because it's probably about, I'm going to guess, 5 or 6 years old, maybe more. And social media changes every single year, but worth a read.
I had a really interesting one actually. It was a Gary Vaynerchuk one called Jab Jab Right Hook. That was based around social media, and the general concept behind it, throwing out jabs which would just be in the form of free content, and then right hook being the sale at the end. Yeah. As a concept, not outdated at all, but it's interesting because in that he's talking about things like Vine and Google Plus.
Wow.
And there was another one in there as well. But it's crazy because that was only written, I want to say like maybe 5-6 years ago, perhaps. Gone, like completely outdated.
Yeah, and meanwhile we're hearing about Facebook and Instagram potentially splitting up now. So
Yes.
yeah, things are changing. So I'm gonna grab the last couple here.
You got so many.
I really do, and I can proudly say I've read all of them.
I've refined some of mine. I've got more.
Well, no, the thing is, like, if we're going to do a podcast talking about books, I thought I will just get the books out there, because I don't see us doing this again for another 6 months.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, I guess there'll be extras that we'll put in the description below for ones that we plan on reading.
Yeah. So if you're not thinking about creating your own business and you're looking to sort of... Well, no, it goes both ways. I guess this is more about CV writing, looking good as an employee or looking good on social media. It's a book called Linked Inbound by Sam Rathling. Sounds absolutely dreadful in terms of like how miserable to learn something about LinkedIn. But I tell you what, just go through this book, follow it, like literally go step by step how to make your LinkedIn profile look good. And damn, it's worth reading. Just because you look professional if somebody looks you up. Because Facebook doesn't always do that for you. And I'll make it the last one. I've got more, but I'll make it the last. This is the book I'm currently reading. The Obstacle is the Way. I mentioned this in my 60-second segment. And it's that Stoicism element. It's finding that path of most resistance and actually choosing that. Because that's going to be the path that so many people are going to drop off of. So many people aren't going to follow because it's too difficult. But you can actually make the most out of it, and you can adapt and overcome all of these challenges to be better than what most people are. And interestingly, it has a whole list of loads of different companies and businesses. I think it was all American businesses, and listed them out. And the majority of businesses, the big ones, were made during a crisis, during a depression, during a panic, during a recession. They were all created during those moments, because somebody saw the silver lining. And so, sorry for wobbling on a little bit there.
No, that's I think that's a really good one to end it on, especially given the circumstances of this year.
Oh yes.
That's brilliant. It'll be really interesting to see in 3-4 years what's actually been planted now that we're not seeing. But it'll for a metaphor, it will come out the soil in however many years. That'd be really cool. There was, I guess, one more for me to mention here. Going back to why we all started things, and that I mentioned about the sort of good timing of everything. With regards to me going on this path, there was a book that my friend gave me by Tony Robbins called Notes from a Friend. Again, tiny book, but it basically has all the concepts of personal growth, both personally and professionally, all in one tiny book that you can pretty much read in about 3 hours. And it's a little sample of where you could potentially go with this. And so if all this seems a bit much, that's the one that pretty much the general consensus is read that. Notes from a Friend. It's a really good book by Tony Robbins. So yeah, definitely recommend that. So we've focused a lot on books at the moment, and we've got a few other things that we've invested in, namely things like courses and all that. We won't touch on this too much because it pretty much follows the same principles as what we said before. But as for courses we've focused on buying things like affiliate marketing courses, just to teach us the ins and outs of that. By Pat Flynn again. We've bought various bits of hardware and software, and all of this is about reinvesting in either the business or ourselves. I think I alluded to it in a previous episode where I was talking about looking for the return on investment on everything. And we basically worked out that the only thing that I've bought that hasn't been a return on investment is my belt, where it's been I'm buying that purely for my own enjoyment. Everything else is kind of looking at it, thinking, is this an asset? Can I get a return off this? I suppose, which is probably somewhat of an unhealthy aspect, but point of view. But I think at this stage in a business, quite early on, where we're still finding our feet with things, and we've got jobs on the side to support it if we do make the wrong decision, it's invaluable, really. Because when we do eventually make this full time, we would have we've got rid of all the wrong options. We know exactly what does work, and I think it's quite investing in yourself, not only with regards to books and all that, but also educational courses and just physical things that you think will make your life easier later down the road.
Yeah, and sort of to highlight those physical things, invest in the hardware, invest in the software if it's going to genuinely make your life easier. If you can already see the fact that it's going to make you more money. So the reason why I'm sort of being so specific about this is I've invested so much money into video production gear. I don't even want to count the thousands essentially that's gone into it, whether it's lighting, cameras, lenses, microphones, speakers, all this sort of stuff. It starts to add up. Funnily enough, what's happened though is for my own videos, for my own content that I'm going to be producing next year, the stuff that I made last year, I've just been using my phone. I've been using my phone camera because it's easier. It makes my life easier to keep things simple. The phone camera's 4K, looks lovely because it's Apple, and I can always tweak it in my software, so the software's worth the investment. But the cameras for YouTube and stuff like that, it's not necessary. And the interesting thing is, and Matt knows this in particular, and I've heard it from a couple of other YouTubers, is that investing in high-end cameras does not mean that you're going to get a bigger audience. In fact, it might mean the opposite, because suddenly you're not as personable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same thing sort of happened with Alex Steele in regards to his workshops. I stopped watching his stuff as much because he wasn't in that little shed that he used to be in that looked so cool. It looked like he was Tony Stark forging in a cave. Like, yeah. It had that element going about it. But as he sort of progressed and sort of just become a little bit more, I don't know, clinical with how the spaces look, it's like, there's no character. And the same thing happens with video, same thing happens with audio. So invest in yourself in regards to books, learning, skills, and really think heavily about whether hardware and software is worth it if you've already got something that can do a comparable job and potentially in an easier way, much like my phone and video.
I think a lot of it is just about making things as easy as possible for yourself. Just to highlight that, I think, there's a reason companies like Amazon and Netflix are so successful. It's because they've made things as easy as possible for people. Will not go for the difficult option, they'll go for the easy one. If they have a choice between going to the shop or pressing a button online, they'll probably press the button online. If they've got a choice of going to Blockbuster to pick up a movie or a choice of pressing the play button on Netflix, they will press the play button on Netflix. You know, for example, this chair that I've bought, very expensive chair, but the reason I bought it is because I'm too lazy to sit in my old horrible chair with perfect posture. That really hurt my back. But with perfect posture and constantly think about that, I just need a chair that I can sit in and it does it for me. I'm sat perfectly at the moment. I need, like it says about, you need to stand up and take walks around and things like that. I've got a little cushion underneath my thing here that I just put my feet on that then lets blood flow at the bottom of my leg. It just makes things easy. And it's, if you can make things easy for yourself, focus on that, not necessarily what's like the top end thing at the time.
Not necessarily production value or quality of things. It's just simplifying, and you'll find you've got more time in the day and you feel better about yourself at the end of the day to get stuff done.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's quite interesting. Okay, let's quickly touch on what we plan on to invest on in 2021, and then we'll finish it up after that. We've realised that we've been on for quite a while, but I guess so far we've had no complaints that the podcasts drag on too long. So
no, only for me having to do the editing.
That's not my problem. It's like I said, this makes it as easy as possible for yourself. So okay, so plans for 2021. Again, I was going to get to this in my 1 minute update at the start of this podcast, but I just completely fudged the entire thing. So
I'm so pleased about that.
I'm not. So what we've realised is that we know we've got a very strong foundation with the business. Like, we're quite happy with where it is, and it's pretty stable. We've got a constant income coming in. We can support our current lifestyles, but if we want to grow that and I guess stay on top of the wave rather than falling behind it, we need to start actually like growing a little bit and scaling a little bit. Side note, I found out there's a difference between the word growing and scaling recently.
Okay. Is scaling more exponential?
No, not necessarily. Growing is like growing a business to, increase revenue, but you'll have to increase workload as well. So like maybe you'll have to hire staff and things like that. Scaling is increasing revenue without any increase in workload. So it's quite interesting. So for example, an email list, you could send an email to 10 people, or you could send an email to 10,000 people, the exactly same email. It costs the same amount of time to do it, but by getting a bigger email list, it's scaling. Quite interesting, isn't it?
I had never thought about it like that.
I might be slightly wrong on it, but that was pretty much
sense.
The general consensus I got, yeah. So we need to do both of them, essentially. We need to grow the supply part of the business because we've got a lot of demand for products, but we don't have the supply. So we need to grow that, and we need to get some way of fulfilling that demand. However, the demand, we need to scale that because we put enough time into it already. We just need to squeeze more out of that and make it more effective. So sort of in the back end. So we need to do both, and it's a big thing to take on. Where do you even go?
It's so difficult, which is why we're looking for someone.
We are looking for someone. We're looking for a business mentor. We've got an advert pre-written that I've sort of sent out to a few contacts and stuff, hoping to get some leads on it. But, a business mentor can cost about 200 quid an hour is what I'm preparing myself for. But one of those things, like, it's an investment. You do it, you get it over and done with, and who knows what you could squeeze out of an hour. It's one of those things, is the time spent on reading an entire book worth it when you could just speak to someone in person? I think there's a lot you can get from books with regards to the general psychology for things, I suppose, but it's hard to beat like actually going in and doing something with someone. Like, for example, I bought a course on learning this video editing software that I use. I could have learned that from YouTube, but finding the videos, slaving through them, and then trying to do it simultaneously, it's much better just to go in a dedicated learning environment and doing it. Paid a lot of money for it, but it has served me very well. And that's kind of the same concept with this business mentor we're looking for. I think it'll be really, really useful.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm looking forward to seeing how it affects things in 2021. That's for sure.
And obviously this podcast, anything that we get from that business mentor that we think will be of interest, or in fact anything that isn't necessarily of interest, it's just a really, it's given us some really good results or made us think about things. We're obviously going to be sharing it on this podcast as well. That's the whole reason for this. It's so you guys can see what's going on behind the scenes, and perhaps get some ideas as a result of our failures, should I say?
Yeah, exactly. So, I guess to wrap up then, what books, what theme of books are you going to be looking for to sort of read in 2021?
Oh, that's a good one. I'll tell you what, as much as I really like the businessy books and the ones that you get action from, I am really enjoying this Power of Now book. It's difficult to get through, but I think ones where they don't necessarily teach you the techie side of things and they just sort of teach you a general philosophy. Like I said, you can learn the techie stuff from actually doing it, but general philosophies and things, I think it's quite cool. There was a book I read in the past by Tim Ferriss called The 4-Hour Work Week, which I don't want to do. I really enjoy working, but it's... again, concepts in that, it's about outsourcing, it's about doing all other things, it's about scaling essentially, because I know what that means now. It's around that. So I want to reread that because I read that far too early on. I think I read that about 2 years before I even started YouTube. So I want to reread that, and then he's done another one called The 4-Hour Body, I think, which... that's basically more based around the personal side of things rather than the business side. And so that is a massive book. That's probably a 3-incher, I think.
Does the first page just say, right, lift this book up and down 50 times on each arm and you'll get the body you want?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Tim Ferriss is known for all these, I don't want to say it, but life hacks. I hate that sort of phrase, but it's that kind of thing where he's just...
to be fair, he's phrased it in that way.
Yeah, but again, he's very stoic. He's into like meditation and that kind of thing, and he's in control. You can tell he knows what's going on. He reads the world like it's a game, and he knows all the rules to it. And I think it's really interesting. So I'm going to sort of delve into them. And so with the 4-hour work week and the 4-hour body, I'm probably looking at about a 6-inch book in total that I need to get through.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I want to do this year.
I was going to say, that's 2021 covered then. It's that book.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, for me then, I really want to dive deep into creating the music books. So, I'm through creating those, I want to also create loads of tutorials to help people learn the piano on YouTube, but I want to make them in a different way. I want to make them with... I'm just going to use this phrase because it doesn't make sense, but I think it does kind of make sense, with psychology in mind. Because so many people can just, like, they can get a piano teacher. They might listen to them during the lesson, but they might not practice. I want to figure out the video format that is going to get people the results. It's going to get people watching from start to finish because it's fascinating, but also give them the drive to keep on doing it afterwards. Mm-hmm. So I'm sort of going to focus on the psychological side of things over the next few months to sort of see if I can translate those learnings into a visual format to then get people to actually do the practice I set them.
That would be interesting. You know the YouTube channel Hillier Smith? So there's countless videos out there or YouTube channels based around how to video edit, but there's not many talking about like he's doing with the psychology and the decisions made behind doing it. So I think that could be a really interesting concept because he's, apart from the fact he's obviously running off the back of Logan Paul being his video editor, his channel's blown up. And it's obviously not solely due to the fact that he's got that sort of clout, I suppose. It's just because he knows what he's talking about and he's attacking it from a really cool perspective. So I think that could work. That'd be really interesting.
Yeah. It's. I'm curious. I'm curious to see how it goes because I've only just started getting back into reading again after the first lockdown. So I did the reading heavily, then took sort of a pause from it, getting back into it. Reading is a skill that you do lose if you don't keep it up.
Mm-hmm,
like
definitely.
The speed of my reading, I keep having to reread sentences because I realise I took none of it in. It's so frustrating. But every single night I built up a habit of reading in the evening, regardless, and it's going well so far. So I want to keep that up for 2021.
Awesome. Well, that's a nice note to end it on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of the links to the books that we have currently read or we plan to read will be listed in the description below. I will say that those will be affiliate links, so if you do purchase through clicking those links, we will get a small commission at no extra cost to you. So thank you in advance for that. But genuinely, they're all absolutely brilliant books, and the ones that we don't think are too good, because there's a few in there, we won't be putting there. Everything that we've put in will be stuff that we have genuinely got good results from, and we really enjoy the sort of thought process behind it. So as always, guys, thank you very much for listening to the podcast. It was a pleasure, as always, to have you here. And we'll see you next week for more of Looking for Our Thing.
See you then.
See you then.